guys back and along for the ride. Welcome to Behind Closed Doors. Today we're going to talk about something that I think is ridiculously important. Sheree, you and I were talking earlier about how this is not the subject that's sexy to talk about on the front end of relationships, but it's probably one of the ones that's most needed. For those of you guys that are just jumping in, welcome along for the ride. I'm Glenn P. Brooks Jr. I'm an author, I'm a speaker, I'm a coach, and sitting here next to me is the lovely light skin
Sheree A. Brooks Jr., author, speaker, and relationship coach. Great to be with you guys today.
So, babe, if you can kind of get us going, we're talking about ride or die. What does that really mean when we came up with this subject?
Yeah, ride or die is a term that's thrown around in relationships all the time. You know, even in friendships, you might ride or die. But what does that really mean? And when it comes to particularly marriages, to family relationships, what ride or die should mean is that you're both willing to fight for the relationship. It's not about fighting each other, but actually fighting for the relationship. And that means putting in some work. And I think it's not just simply, I'm going to hang in here with you, I'm going to stay with you through thick or thin. That's part of it, but it's, okay, you're going through thick or thin, but what are you guys actively doing to do something? Even if you think about Bonnie and Clyde, you know, the ultimate ride or die couple that everybody
You said Bonnie or Body?
Bonnie and Clyde. Okay. The ultimate, you know, that's where people get the term ride or die from. They were doing something. I'm not saying go out and rob banks. I'm not saying that. But they were actively doing something that made them ride or die. There was action that came along with that.
Yeah, and I think probably a more at-home example is when you set out to build something, you generally are skilled at the thing you're trying to build. And so I think what I hear you saying is a lot of times we're approaching relationships from a place of a lack of skill, and we say we're going to ride it out, but here's what I know, year 3 happens. And year 5 happens, and before you know it, you really don't have the capabilities to make this thing work.
Right. You know, I think that in relationships, we, particularly marriage, once you get married, you kind of coast. We just going to coast through this thing called life. We just going to go through and let it do what it does. But a true ride or die partner is going to be actively involved, actively engaged in the relationship. Even, I mean, I think, I don't like the term ride or die, to be honest, because it makes it seem, the ride part, I guess I don't like. Because riding is passive. When you ride, you're just passively there. Wow. I'm just here by your side.
Wow.
I'm just here. I'm going to be here. You all know, I mean, many of you may know of couples, they've been married 30, 40, 50 years, but their relationship is not flourishing. They're just together. We've been together for 50 years.
Listen.
And he's still here.
There's a statistic that says that 50% of marriages end in divorce, and I heard somebody say years and years ago, I wonder how the other 50% is doing. And so when you start talking about it, I never thought about that. Ride is, in your mind, passive when you think ride, but when you think from gangsters and you talk about Bonnie and Clyde, ride means I'm down for whatever to me. To me, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm being passive. It means I'm loyal. I'm not going nowhere. I'm not going to quit. I'm not backing up off this. I'm here, and I'm gonna ride this thing until the wheels fall off. But what I hear you saying is that's fine, but what is the quality of the relationship while you riding?
Right, and I think that's the key thing is that what is the quality? So are you guys actively engaged in the relationship? Are you actually putting in the work in the relationship? So every relationship, you're going to go through ups and downs. You're going to go through some trials. There's something, life is going to do something. You're going to have some situations that you go through. Are you both willing to fight through whatever that situation is? Are you both willing to fight against outside influences, not allowing those to come in and infringe upon your relationship? And that outside influence can be your children.
Let's talk about that for a second. Real quick, I want to take a quick pause. For those of you guys who are just pulling up, maybe this is your first time catching us live. We are actually live today, and I want to encourage you to please do me a huge favor, guys. And I want you to tune in or chime in, rather. Let us know if you are viewing us. Where are you viewing us from? What city, what state? Put it in the chat. Part of it is I want to make sure that this program is working properly and that we can actually see the chat. So if you're viewing, I know you're probably doing 1,000 things in the background. Do me a favor, stop what you're doing and say good morning or good afternoon, buenas tardes, something just to say, hey, boo, I'm here. The other thing is if you have questions or if you have something you want to add to the conversation, one of the reasons why we're experimenting with going live as opposed to just putting up, static is probably a better word, videos that are just one way. We want to interact with you. We want to engage with you. We want to create a dialogue because as coaches, one of the things that I cannot do is I can't help you if I don't know what you're going through. And so if you're here today, maybe you're good and you're just supporting, share this out to somebody. Let them know that we're here behind closed doors and we're talking about ride or die. What does that really mean? We have this asphyxiation, I think, Cherie, with movies and with phraseology and with terms and with motivational sayings. But I don't know, and even my church people with certain, ways that you put things, but I'm not so sure that we think through what do they really mean. Come on, talk to me.
Right. So I'm going to give you guys an example of what true ride or die looks like in the confines of a marriage in particular. So you guys are going through life and your spouse makes a bad decision. Say they, make a bad financial decision, say they lose their job, say that there's some crisis, and now you have to carry the weight, whether it's financially, whether it's, whatever it is, you're feeling the weight of their bad decision that they made. They made a poor decision, and now you're having to suffer the consequences of that bad decision along with them. You didn't do it. You didn't make the decision. Why should I have to suffer? Because he didn't do what he was supposed to do. Now we're in a financial strain. I can't do the things that I want to do. Why do I have to suffer? That's what ride or die is. When you're in a relationship together, you're in it together. So whoever makes a bad decision, and we're all going to make bad decisions at some point in life because we're not perfect. None of us are perfect. So as much as ladies, we think we are, we're not. We make mistakes too. So when someone makes a poor decision, when someone goes off the reservation, and you have to wind up suffering the consequences of their bad choice or their bad decision, being able to stick in there with that person through that season, that's ride or die. And I think the part that people forget about, and this is for my spiritual people, even in Proverbs, they talk about being long-suffering. Part of being in a marriage is the ability to be long-suffering. That means being able to endure, to persevere through trials with that person. Not be so willing to throw in the towel when things get uncomfortable.
You know what? And I want to unpack that just real quick. And let's slow down for a second because I can hear people in the audience say, yeah, that's fine. But what if it's not my fault? How long do you do that? Why do you do that? Should I have to pay the penalty of their bad decision? So many times we find people getting in and out of relationship because, quote, I'm no longer happy. Now this is going to be an unpopular opinion. We're talking about marriage here, guys. And one of the things that I am fundamentally sound and sure on, marriage was not designed for your happiness.
Not at all.
It was designed for your wholeness. Now, I need y'all to hear me and ride with me for a second. Think about it for a minute. When you have two completely different people who grow up from completely different backgrounds and they come together, there is this rubbing and there's friction involved with you guys being able to find your groove or find out how you sync up. And I want to kind of go back to something that I was just sharing with someone yesterday. I think a lot of times, Cherie, we get this wrong because we have picked people to rock with that we don't value. I need you to hear me clearly. When I say value, you don't share or you don't have mutual values. You have mutual interests, maybe. You have mutual likes. And then you decide to do a long-term, till death do you part, covenant type of a thing called marriage. And now you realize I don't even share the same values of this person. So, for example, if we go back to what you said, it now becomes he's made a decision that has caused us to be in a financial bind. And because he has a job and I have a job, and I don't value mutualism. I don't value that. No, it can really boil down to this idea of, oh, that's on you then. That's that you, hey, you made that bed, now you got to sleep in it, as if we're not a unit. You got something you want to add back?
Oh, that's good. So I'm going to give you guys an example. So we in the past have coached couples that have gone through some situations where maybe one spouse made a poor decision. And the initial response of the spouse that didn't make the decision is that, oh, I'm not going to suffer this. So say they lost their job. We're going to make it something real simple. Say they lost their job, or they quit their job, or whatever happened. They're not able to get a job. I'm not going to suffer because they made this poor decision, or because this thing happened. And well, not they lost the job. They quit their job for whatever reason. They wanted to go and decided they were going to be a rap star. I don't know, whatever it is. But they left their job and you guys hadn't discussed it. They made a poor decision. The other party's response typically is like, well, I don't feel like I should have to suffer. They're going through what they're going through. I'm not going to let the mortgage not get paid. You're not going to let them feel the consequences of their decision because you're going to bail them out. And so, now this I know is going to be really unpopular. I think when a person makes a poor choice, a poor decision, they have to feel the consequences of that. Now, I'm not saying you got to let the house get taken from you. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that you go to the point that the kids are starving. I'm not saying that either. But I think you have to allow some room for that person to feel the consequence, because part of me riding with you, yes, I'm here to support you, but I'm not here to enable you at the same time. So I have to allow you to feel the brunt of what you did, because if every time you make a poor decision, I jump in and I rescue you, I fix it, you're never going to learn from whatever that situation is, because part of me being your rider is here. I'm here to help hold you up, but I'm not going to enable you.
Cherie, I also hear you saying I'm here to hold you accountable. So when we talk about not enabling people, y'all, I think that there is a lack of skill, a lack of intentionality around this idea of building the kind of framework around your relationship that really pulls the other person to the table of accountability. And so what you're saying is, if a person is not meant to feel the brunt or the consequences of their decision, at that particular point, the likelihood of them going out and repeating the same unproductive behavior becomes real. And I think that unfortunately, what most of us don't do is, when we think ride or die, we think I'm just supposed to go with you and let you drag me and me drag you and nobody do work and we just hear. I think it's deeper than that.
Right. Supporting another person, being there for that person, does not mean enabling them. It does not mean that you continue to allow them, and yes, I'm going to say allow them to continue in their bad behavior, whatever it is. So whether they're doing drugs, alcohol, whatever, they're gambling and they're spending their portion of what's supposed to pay for the mortgage. If they go out and do that, you have to allow them to feel that they need to then go out. You're going to hold them accountable, where you need to figure out how you're going to come up with this money. I'm not going to just go into my savings or into the household money and cover this for you when you've made that mistake. So that may mean this vacation that we had planned, well, we're going to have to cancel that.
Ooh.
Because yeah, I deserve a vacation. I've been looking forward to it. But because of your decision, we're not in a place that we can do that now. So you don't get to then we go party like it's 1999 and you just made a major mistake. No, that money needs to sit there now, because that needs to help cover some things. But you're going to have to make that up. You're going to have to figure that out. And I think oftentimes what we do in marriages, because of our own comfortability, we don't want to be uncomfortable. And so the response is either I'm going to fix it, I'm going to jump in and I'm going to take care of it so I don't have to feel it, or I'm going to leave because I ain't got to put up with this. And so those are the two responses, and either of those responses is not a true rider. That is an enabler or a person that doesn't have the ability to persevere.
So if you're just jumping on the live, welcome to today's edition of Behind Closed Doors with the Brookses. I'm Glenn P. Brooks Jr. This is Cherie Brooks Jr. We are authors. We're coaches. We have created a community where we get a chance to grow and coach couples and parents who are trying to do what it is that they're trying to do with great intentionality. And generally speaking, when people rock with us long enough, there is a significant transformation that takes place. But part of it is what you're talking about. When we're talking about ride or die, the question is, what does that really mean? Are you on the hook for their bad decisions? If you are a rider, and you challenge a bad decision that your spouse or significant other makes, does that now all of a sudden put you into a hater category, or you not supporting me? Fellas, listen to me carefully. I've heard this argument 1,000 times. You know, I don't like how my wife don't support me. She ain't willing to ride with me and da-da-da. And I honestly think, because I was that guy, I think a lot of times what we really expect is for them to support our bad behavior, our bad decisions, and really. And when you say bail us out, that is, we've several couples that we've coached over the years that have had this particular challenge. And that is this. One is an entrepreneur. The other has a 9-to-5. The one that's an entrepreneur feels compelled by this vision that they have to start this business. It's going to require a tremendous amount of sacrifice to make that happen. But in often cases, and I will say this, in the case where the man is the entrepreneur, he's looking at his wife to, quote, support him. And let me tell you what that means. That means that if I need to take the rent money, if I need to take the mortgage money, if I need to take the car payment and float the business this month, she should automatically be good with that. And if she presses back, she's not a rider. If she presses back, she's not supporting me. She's a hater, or she's stepping on my dreams. The reason why I can be passionate about this, because we grew through this. I'm talking about me. Right. And then it got to the point, Cherie, where I realized that, no, this was not about you supporting me in bad decisions. This was about you helping me create a framework where the thing I wanted to do could actually come to fruition, but it was going to be with some accountability.
Right. And so for my dreamers, for my visionaries, for my entrepreneur-minded people, you have this great vision, this thing that you want to do. That's great. I think that's an admirable thing. But when you are in a marriage, when you're in a relationship, you have to consider your spouse. And you also have to understand that in order for me to support you in your dream, in your vision, I have to see some activity. You just sitting around talking about this dream and doing dream vision boards, and you just telling me what you gonna do and you ain't doing nothing, does not give me the confidence to trust in your vision. And so I have to see activity. I have to see that you're doing that in order for me to trust in what you're saying, for me to truly support it. I'm supportive of you as a person. I'm glad you have dreams. I'm glad you have visions. I'm glad that you are thinking outside the box. I'm glad that you're thinking of the future. But I need to see some activation. I need to see something going on in order for me to support that. And so if you are not actively doing something, and let me add this other piece. So for my entrepreneurs, you want to start a business. People that are starting a business, you're just starting out. If you are not generating income, and sometimes it can take up to 5 years to generate income in a new business, depending on what you're doing. It takes time. You're not going to just have this idea and start it and money's going to come all the time. Don't forget that your first priority is your family. And so if you got to do Uber Eats, if you got to do Uber, if you got to work overnight somewhere to help contribute to the household, don't be so prideful that you're not willing to do that. That is going to go a long way for your wife or for your husband to support you in what you're doing. Because if I'm going to work every day 9 to 5 and you sitting around the house all day and you're not being productive, you're not doing anything. And part of being productive is you bringing me in every day, letting me know what you're working on today.
Cherie, let me just jump in right there, because when you say productive, I need people to understand that that doesn't necessarily mean making money.
Right.
I need y'all to understand that productivity is about moving the needle. So, for example, fellas, and I'm talking to you because this was me. I am the dreamer in our relationship. I'm the person that comes up with these ideas that this is what we should be doing and this is how you should be helping me and all of the bit. And I am going to put the expectation that you ride with me. Ride with me. And another word for that is trust me on this, right? Here's a challenge. If I am creating a vision and that vision isn't written down, that vision at this particular point is too obscure for my wife, particularly the way she's built, to buy into that. And so what I have to do is I have to create a vision, write it down, make it plain. And the scripture talks about so that a herald can run with that, so that the person who's delivering it can run with the message because it's intact. Here was where I was making my mistake. I would come up with the idea. I knew about how I was going to do it, but it wasn't tangible. And so therefore, here's the trick. And we're talking about production. Now, when I begin to make the necessary steps between point A and point B, here's what I know. Yeah, you got point A and you got point B, but there are several steps to go between point A and point B. My mind traditionally don't think of those steps. Well, when I slow down long enough to create a vision, write it down and say, I am on step 3 between A and B. I am making progress. Cherie and I created situations where we would sit down and have meetings around what are we doing? Where are we going? Has things changed? That's the kind of stuff that kept her connected, so that now she became a writer because she knew the plan. Mm-hmm. And I think that unfortunately what we do is we just think that people are just supposed to buy in and they supposed to just ride because we said so.
Right. So the rider goes both ways. It's for the person that's supporting, but the person that's being supported, there's a part that you have to do also to show me that you're a rider. It means you're not just relying, you're not just sitting back and riding passively while I'm handling everything. And oftentimes what happens in relationships, it becomes one-sided. And that's not a ride or die relationship. Now, the die part, like we all know, when you get married, it should be till death do us part. It should be till death do us part. We all know divorces happen. Both Glenn and I both have been divorced in the past. So I'm not saying that there aren't times and causes that may lead to that. But if you're a true ride or die, that should never be an option. And what I mean by that, when you guys are going through stuff, you should not be throwing out the D word like you're throwing up the hat. You ain't throwing up the D word. You're not saying I want to leave or I'm done. Because if you're really in this to the end, that should never come up as an option, no matter what you guys are going through. That there should be such a level of commitment that no matter what the situation is, your spouse knows that no matter what, that you're there and you're in it through whatever, you're in it till the end.
So, guys, for those of you guys, I'm sorry, for those, my bad there. Here we go. Pushing buttons. So all
let's
right,
try that again.
Yeah, let's try that again. There we go. So for those of you guys who are just popping in, listen, let me just say this really quickly. Every Thursday, we drop an episode here called Behind Closed Doors with the Brookses. Cherie and I are always putting together programs, resources, different things to help couples and parents do what they need to do, but do it from a skilled perspective. Do me a huge favor if you can. I want you to go to our website, glennpbrooksjr.com. If you have any questions about anything that we are talking about, maybe you want to figure out a way to work with us. If it's in our coaching program, we do have a group coaching program where we meet with couples and parents every Tuesday night. It's a subscription service. We've been running that community for 7 years. There are a ton of ways. We've got, if it's a mini course, if it's a book that we've written, if it's maybe an assessment that you need to take. We've got a bunch of tools over there. Please just do me a favor when you get a chance, go to glennpbrooksjr.com and figure it out. Cherie, as we wrap up, we talked a lot about the rider We talked a lot about what that should entail versus what we think it does. Let's talk about dying just a little bit, and I want to open that up to this. A lot of times when we get married, we hear "till death do you part." I don't believe that that is always a physical death or just referring to a physical death. I believe that marriage is about sacrifice, and doing it at a high level is going to require you to die to what you want in the moment and for some periods of time. Now, a lot of us intellectually get that. But when that thing shows up, it becomes a whole nother thing. You got something, babe?
Yeah, you have to be willing to die to yourself. And what I mean is dying to your selfishness, dying to your right to be right, dying to you're always getting your way. That when you're truly in a marriage, when you guys have truly adopted this ride or die mentality in your relationship, I don't have to be right. It doesn't have to be my way. I'm willing to die to myself for what's most beneficial for the relationship. It's not that I'm dying to myself necessarily for you. It's for what's best for the relationship as a whole. So if there's something that I want and I realize in this season that's not the most beneficial thing for me to do right now. If I want to, I'll give you an example. So there was a season I wanted to leave my job to get my real estate license, and we may have talked about this before. I came home one day. I had mentioned to Glenn I was thinking about doing it. I had already gone through the course. I had gotten my real estate license and was doing it part-time, and I decided I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do that full-time. I don't want to come to this job anymore. I chose to just quit my job and come home. That was not me dying to myself. That was me being selfish. That was me not considering what was best for our relationship at that time, because where we were not financially in a position at that time that it made sense for me to walk away from my job fully. But I was being selfish. And so what dying to myself would have looked like would have been like me continuing along with the plan where we had agreed upon that I would do it part-time until I had built up enough revenue that I could walk away from my job so it would not have an impact on our household. It wasn't that I couldn't still pursue what I was doing, but I needed to do it in a way that it didn't have a negative impact on the household. And oftentimes that's what happened, especially for my entrepreneur-minded people. You have this dream, you have this vision, and you got to act on it now, and you don't care. You don't care how it impacts anybody else because you got this thing burning inside of you, and I just got to do it. Ooh. And they'll just figure it out. Ooh. They're going to suck it up, and we'll get through this. No, you have to consider your family first. Your first calling once you get married is your family. You have to be responsible for your family first and foremost. Everything else comes after that. And if you are not ready to do that, you may not need to say I do. For those of you that aren't married, you may need to wait until you're in a place that you're willing to put someone else before yourself, because that's what marriage is about. It's about considering the other person first and foremost. It doesn't mean that your visions, your goals, they die, but you do have to consider other people. It's like when you have a child, you now should be considering that child and their well-being first before yourself. Yeah,
absolutely, babe. Let me jump in, and we're getting ready to wrap this up, but I want to express and just kind of help you guys understand that when Cherie is talking about this idea of giving up a portion of yourself or dying to yourself, we're not talking about forever. We're talking about in seasons. Yes. And so she was not willing to do that in the season. We've got 1,000 stories that we can share with you guys about how, we had to say, you know what, in this season, and I'll just throw this one out really, really quickly. When we started our full-time business, which is a personal development company, back in 2015, Cherie came to me and told me, for the next year, I can financially carry us. And this will be a season where we can allow you to go out and put the work in to build this business to the point to where you don't have to, or I don't have to work. I don't have to do all the things. I don't have to do all of the dreams that you have in your head. You got a year to make that happen. When she gave me that time frame, it put a boundary around how long she was willing to ride. And what I'm saying is that she had already had in her mind, I can keep this up for that period of time. I can keep this supporting us thing up for a certain period of time. I can't extend it past that because I don't have the energy, the resources, and the whole bit. So what it did is it made me step up to the plate and do all that needed to be done in that season because I had no intentions in getting a traditional job. I had this passion to help and develop couples and parents on a full-time basis, and I didn't want to do it in the context of a counselor in terms of a therapist because I didn't have the degrees for that. I wasn't willing to go back to ministry and do it from a standpoint of ministry stuff because I didn't believe God was calling me to stay in that place because we had just come out of that space. I had to make this work, and I had a year to do it. So I'm telling you guys, dismiss the idea that, oh man, I don't get a chance to dream and do my things. No. This is about a season. This is about a period of time so that you can get yourself together. And at this particular point, that changed everything. Do me a favor, babe, if you can, drop the link to our website in the chat, www.glennpbrooksjr.com. And I'm not sure if it'll create a hyperlink. Yolanda is asking that. Listen to me carefully. If you guys need help in this area, this is what we do all day, every day, twice on Sunday for a living. We've written 9 books between the two of us. Cherie and I have committed our life. This is our life's work to help you guys figure out what we've already figured out. And we've created an entire community of people who get it. So you're not going to feel judged and that sort of stuff. Go to glennpbrooksjr.com. Check it out. See if there's any resources that make sense. We have things on the low end in terms of commitment level, on the high end in terms of commitment level. I'm sure there's some kind of resource there for you that can help you do what needs to be done. Babe, you got anything in closing?
Yeah, and lastly, I just want to say that when it comes to having a ride or die relationship, it's about supporting each other. It's about being willing to compromise. It's about being willing to have the tough conversation. It's so many layers to this. This is not just some little tagline you should just be saying, oh, we ride or die. That's like a deep saying when you say that. When you really are a ride or die, it takes your being selfless. It takes you putting your spouse before you. It takes being willing to die to yourself, and it takes being willing to endure and persevere through things that happen in life together. It is the epitome of what really riding together, being together in marriage looks like. It should be a ride or die relationship. I do agree with that. But I think that there's work that we have to understand that goes into making that happen. It's not just you get married, ooh, we ride or die, and then you realize when the first hiccup comes up, oh, I ain't signed up for this. I ain't signed up for none of this.
That part.
I ain't signed up for none of this as far as the bad. Marriage is not sunshine, roses, and unicorns. I'm sorry, I hate to disappoint you guys, but that's not real marriage. That's the honeymoon, and it may last for a number of years, but life is going to come in at some point, and you're going to have to be able to endure, and that's when it's going to be really tested, whether you really are a ride or die.
At the end of the day, here's what I can promise you. You cannot get to any place of significance by yourself, guys. And the reason that is because we all need some help. Y'all be good, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode of Behind Closed Doors.